one that could fetch as much as $6,000 when it goes up for auction later this month. Why? It involves the Titanic, one of the most famous shipwrecks in history. Titanic hit an iceberg on the night of April 14, 1912. The ship that was called unsinkable sank within 3 hours. Of 2,200 people on board, about 700 got to lifeboats and survived. That was one of the problems when the ship went down. There weren't enough lifeboats for the people on board, but there were still enough to hold just under 1,200 people. So why did only 700 survive? Because the lifeboats weren't filled to capacity. One rumor of why haunted the woman who wrote the letter up for auction.
This letter is handwritten, and it is by a survivor of the Titanic. Lady Lucy Duff Gordon. She wrote this letter on May 27, 1912. She's writing to her very good friend that lives in New York, and she begins the letter by saying, "Thank you so much for your care, your concern, because of the disaster that just happened." She goes on to talk about her husband Cosmo. Lady Lucy Duff Gordon was a very important fashion designer at the time. This was definitely a couple that had a lot of money. And they ended up in lifeboat number 1. And that's where the controversy begins. Lady Lucy Duff Gordon says in the letter that she and her husband Cosmo were the only ones that were asked to testify before the British Wreck Commissioner's inquiry. She also says that after that the tabloids went rampant, saying that it was her husband that commandeered the lifeboat and the person that was rowing to say, "Row even faster. Don't put any more survivors on board." Now, here are the facts. That lifeboat could hold 40 survivors. The fact of why there were only 12 survivors in that lifeboat and not 40 has never been corroborated. But Lady Lucy Duff Gordon, in this letter to her friend in 1912, says that her husband never got over the rumors, that it affected him for the rest of his life. She says, quote, that he was brokenhearted over the negative coverage for the rest of his life.
One that could fetch as much as $6,000 when it goes up for auction later this month. It involves the Titanic, one of the most famous shipwrecks in history. Titanic hit an iceberg on the night of April 14, 1912. The ship that was called Unsinkable sank within 3 hours of 2,200 people on board. About 700 got to lifeboats and survived. That was one of the problems when the ship went down. There weren't enough lifeboats for the people on board, but 3 were still enough to hold just under 1,200 people. So why did only 700 survive? Because the lifeboats weren't filled at the capacity. One rumor of why haunted the woman who wrote the letter up for auction. This letter is handwritten, and it is by a survivor of the Titanic, Lady Lucy Duff Gordon. She was this letter on May 27, 1912. She is writing to her very good friend that lived in New York, and she begins the letter by saying, "Thank you so much for your care, your concern, because of the disaster that just happened." She goes on to talk about her husband Cosmo. Lady Lucy Duff Gordon was a very important fashion designer at the time. This was definitely a couple that has a lot of money. And they ended up in lifeboat number 1. And that's where the controversy begins. Lady Lucy Duff Gordon says in the letter that she and her husband Cosmo were the only ones that were asked to testify before the British Wreck Commissioner's inquiry. She also says that after that the tabloids went rampant, saying that it was her husband that commandeered the lifeboat and the person that was rowing to say, "Row even faster. Don't put any more survivors on board." Now here are the facts. The lifeboat could have 40 survivors that fact-verified. There were only 12 survivors in that. Life but not 40 has never been corroborated. But Lady Lucy Duff Gordon, in this letter to her friend in 1912, says that her husband never got over the rumors. They did affect him for the rest of his life. She says that he was broken-hearted over the negative coverage for the rest of his life.